when you reached out to me, what were you envisioning? What was your motive behind wanting to do a podcast?
Well, so, I'm a retired Metro Nashville sergeant. I have been diagnosed PTSD, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, all those things. It's a horrible thing that we need to work on because we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
We kind of make excuses for guys that we work with, but this is something that's drastically, changed my life. My father was a detective for 33 years, and he passed away 3 years after retiring. The stat is that more officers die by suicide than in the line of duty. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's because we don't talk about it. And it's getting better, but it needs to be more. We need to normalize not being okay and getting help. Because when I went to treatment the first time, I don't know if I was really convinced that I needed to really change, but throughout my story, and losing everything, having everything and losing it, not losing it, throwing it away, has really affected my children, my family. And so I want to bring awareness to this thing that we don't talk about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. You were instrumental in me getting help and me finding, figuring out what was going on with me. Because for a long time, I knew I was not okay, but I didn't know what I was exactly struggling with. I didn't really understand what was going on inside of me. And you getting me into Magnolia Meadows was life-changing, life-saving for me. So when you reached out to want to do the podcast, I remember thinking, hell yeah, man, that's exactly what I want to do. Because that gives me a way to pay this forward. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do since I left Magnolia, And I know so many people that are struggling that don't even realize they're struggling. When I think back on people that I worked with over the years, I can see the signs, I can see exactly some of the demons that they're battling. And when I left Magnolia, I started putting a few things on the internet. I came public with my issues. It started reaching people. And what's crazy is how many people, like strangers, people I didn't even know from across the country, reached out and not just empathize with the things I was saying, but thanked me for bringing it up. Specifically, the issue of experiencing joy. So that's one of the things that's one of the first things I started struggling with. I realized I didn't enjoy anything anymore. I didn't enjoy my old hobbies. I couldn't experience it unless I did. I don't even think it really helped me experience joy, but what it ended up doing was it forced me to find unhealthy coping mechanisms, to try to replace that joy, that void that was sitting there. And that specific line, I struggle experiencing joy, is what so many people resonated with. And I got so many private messages on social media, people that I know in real life that called me and said, thank you. I thought I was the only one, man. And I've been struggling with that for years. When you texted me, I thought, man, this is a great way, to take that light and pay it forward, try to help other people, and then give others who have struggled in this field of, whether the first responders, military, or family of military first responders, give people a chance to tell their stories, and show and help share their process of healing and their journey through it.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's about starting a conversation. I work with a bunch of departments because I work in treatment now with first responders and military. You have departments that don't have a wellness unit.
Yeah.
Then you have departments who have been doing it for 20 years. I went through Nashville's wellness unit, was the first to go through just for substance abuse and not getting in trouble. My story I went to treatment. I didn't feel like I was treated very well when I got back, and it ended up making me retire. And I was on almost 17 years. But now, it's kind of funny, but I talk with those guys still all the time now, and one of them said, hey, we really didn't do right by you, but they didn't know, they didn't know what they were doing. And it's completely changed because I sat down with them and they asked me what would make it better for me, because what we don't want is for people to go into treatment, come back with horror stories about their department, how they're treated,
Yes.
Whatever it is. And then that stops other guys from getting help.
Yeah.
Think about it like this. So here's a question. How many times did you almost ask for help?
That's a good point. That's a fair point. Yeah, definitely a lot, and I was one of the people that was like I considered myself fairly vocal about my issues. You know, if you ask the guys that worked specifically like around me, they would probably say, yeah, he was open about the fact that he went to see, like, for our department it was called PASS, but therapy. I had no problem voicing that I needed to go talk to therapists, and I tried to advocate for other guys that I worked with, like encouraging them, hey, if you think you're struggling, like, it's okay to go talk to these guys, like, it's going to help. But even with me being as vocal as I was, I still had a lot of demons that I kept behind, like, or hidden behind a closed door. I still put on a mask every day, and yeah, that number, it was very high, for sure.
You know, and I don't, you know, I had this feeling like when I got help, I'm like, okay, these guys, because at the time I was working narcotics, and I was the point on the entry team. And it was like, if I ask for help, they're not going to want to follow me through that door. You know, I had already assumed that they were going to see me as weak. I can't handle it. They can't trust me, all that kind of stuff. And like you're saying, to your point, was when I got back from treatment, I had numerous people call because they were curious. You know, they were curious about the process and all that stuff. And that's what we want. We want guys asking questions. We want guys getting help.
Yeah.
I've had lots of ups and downs, lots of mistakes. But I, you know, when I do what I'm told to do, like from therapy, you know, doing the trauma therapy and all that stuff, my life is better.
Yeah.
It's when I take back control and think, okay, I'm good. That's when things start going bad again. You know, it's, you know, we all, and I'm sure the people on here we all know that one officer in your detail who is just mad. And he's been mad for 10 years. And that's a true story from mine. Guy's pissed off for 10 years. And it's like, what is that? You know, it's PTSD, it's depression, it's anxiety. But we don't know how to get help, or we don't want to get help because of the way we'll be seen, you know? And that leads to people living 2-3 years after retirement. That's it. To me, that's insane you know, I lost my father at 57 years old, you know, but, you know, treatment and stuff for those guys, he came on at 73, wasn't normalized. It is being normalized now, and a lot of it, because, you know, like I said, I've dealt with a bunch of departments where I could get a hold of the chiefs, LAPD chief, responded to an email, sent him 10 minutes. That's incredible, you know? And so what we're finding now is, like, the guys that I work with, they're all chiefs and captains now, you know, but it's changing. It's changing over to, let's help these people. In Tennessee, if you're diagnosed with PTSD, your police or fire, it's presumed on the job.
Yeah.
That law got passed July and a year prior for the fire department. But now we're saying it's okay. But, you know, there's that stigma of carrying a gun, mental health issues, substance abuse, and all that kind of stuff that we just have to get through, you know. And I think you probably agree, like, the way I perceived that I was going to be thought of when I left treatment wasn't anywhere close. You know? And it was, you know, I have guys today that I worked with trying to help get them sober and mental health stuff. And I couldn't do all that without my train wreck of a story, you know. And I'm not, people ask me a lot, what would I change? And my answer is nothing. I wouldn't change anything. You know, my marriage is great. My first marriage did not survive my addiction, but I have a relationship with my sons now where we can talk about anything. And it's incredible, you know. I had huge. One tell me something, and I won't go to it, but, you know, my wife said, isn't it amazing that you've created an environment where he can tell you the truth? Because I told them, and I don't want either one of them, they're 19 and 16 now, I don't want either one of them feeling like I'm perfect.
Right.
Because I'm human, I make mistakes. But the difference is, especially throughout my recovery, I've been very open and honest with them about what's going on. And that way there's a line of communication now that is open that I didn't have, you know, when I was growing up. So it's just one of those things. It's like, it's incredible. I never saw it coming, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, I like how you said that. That I've felt that way several times. You know, I wouldn't. You know, I have some resentment, like, towards life. You know, like, I feel like I've been cheated out of some things because of what's happened, like the effect that it's had on me. But at the same time, I wouldn't change anything. I would, like, if I could go back, like, I guess what I mean is I wouldn't change anything when it comes to the rehabilitation, getting help, because it has been life-changing. And I haven't felt, I felt such a weight that was lifted off of me coming out of rehab, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know how to describe that. I mean, it's just an amazing feeling, and it's wonderful. And but to get there, I had to fall apart. You know, like I didn't quite hit rock bottom, but I was getting pretty close.
Well, nothing
you know?
changes in the comfort zone.
Yeah.
There's no reason to change. You know, it's where we get uncomfortable and we experience things that hurt us and all that stuff. We have a choice. And it's a lot easier for me now to look back and say, all right, this really sucked. This is what I learned from it, though. You don't see it at the time. But everything that I went through, and I could go back and point at a ton of things where I can point to each situation that changed my life and put me in, you know, I always say like this, I'm grateful for everything I've got from recovery. I didn't like how I had to get it.
Yeah.
You know, I was put through things, you know, I wanted patience. No one gave me patience. I was put in situations where I had to practice patience, but that sort of thing. And it's like for us, especially, you know, to get rid of that ego, because especially with our partners, because, you know, in Nashville, the big code is code 5,000, right?
Yeah.
And the code 5,000, officer in serious danger, death, bodily injury. And when that goes out, everyone goes. And I'll ask that when I give talks. What would you do to get to that officer? And, you know, it would be anything. And I said, well, okay, what if you notice your partner's drinking too much or their depression? What then?
Yeah.
Do we say anything or do we make excuses for them? We make excuses for them, you know, and that's fatal.
Yeah. And most people are uncomfortable having those conversations. So
I think the biggest things that, you know, officers and first responders and stuff can do is just live it. You know, I've had several people that I worked with in sobriety to help them sober said the same thing. It's the biggest compliment I think I can get. It says, I want what you have. I don't know what it is, but I want it. And to me, that's great because, you know, there's people all the time that'll just talk and just don't change anything. It's a whole different situation where you can live your life a certain way and you impact people, which is phenomenal. And that's what our officers, all first responders, firemen, we sacrifice so much. We sacrifice our sanity in a lot of cases. Yeah. And I feel like, you know, we're left out there without any help. But a lot of that's on us because we are the ones who refuse to ask for help. You know, we're the ones that say, okay, we're the ones who give excuses for your partner, you know, and it's fatal. It can be fatal anyways.
It definitely can be fatal. And you know, you mentioned earlier how early retired police officers usually die. I mean, the life expectancy is in the high 50s, and most police officers retire in the early 50s. So that's not that's not a retirement, and that is, you know, that's a accumulation of years of cortisol dumps into the body from stress, from the traumatic events that they see, and then you pile on like all the other unhealthy things, right? So sleep deprivation because of shift work. And overtime, probably it's fair to say unhealthy eating habits. You know, yes, there are police officers that are phenomenal and they meal prep, but I think as a general rule that across the board, that's not the case. Then pile on, you know, the stress from life in general, you know, whether if you're having marriage problems, children problems, financial problems, and then throw in alcohol. I mean, 20 to 30 years of that stuff over and over and over again. And what you end up is dying before you're 60 years old.
But the thing about that is that's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal for us. You know, we don't know of any other way. You know, and it takes that, you got to get to a place where you're hurting so bad you want to change. Because people come in all the time and I'll talk to families and they'll say, how do we help him? How do we get him better? And it's like, he doesn't think he has a problem.
Right.
How do you fix something he doesn't think he has?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of part of, you got to kind of let the people come, you know, to you.
Yeah, you can't force it. You know, there have been people I've tried. Some I've reached out to like directly over the years, and they may not have even realized what I was trying to do, but I would try to like point out some of their anger issues or things like that. And I know I've had lots of conversations with people, and if they're not ready to hear it, man, it's just it's in one ear out the other at the best. At the worst, they get pissed off at you, and then now you've just damaged a friendship that you were trying to help.
I think with the stats that I heard, like a normal person will experience like 5 to 6 truly traumatic events in their life.
Yeah.
First responder will go through up to 900.
Yeah.
Like we're not designed to take that kind of stuff.
No.
And, you know, and then we stuff it all down. And one of the biggest problems I had, and I think a lot of us do, I would go home and my wife would say, "How was your day?" It was good.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's not good, you know? And what we do is we pile that stuff into like that closet in the hallway where you stuff everything because we don't want to impact them in a negative way, right?
Nope.
So, but eventually it spills out, you know, and It's bad when it does.
Yeah, and that's such a complicated point that you raised right there, because it's not just we don't want to burden them. That is part of it, but another big part of it is we don't. Number one, at least for me, I didn't want to always talk about it again. I didn't want to relive everything I just went through that day. So and then even if I did, how do you communicate that to somebody? How do you bring that up? Like, how do I convey the terrible things I just saw today to somebody else? And then there's that stigma that goes with the culture of it. Like, well, you don't want to seem weak. You don't want to seem like you're whining, asking for attention. I know I would always think like, well, I don't want to make this about me. Like if I you know what I mean? Like if I talk about this too much, then it's going to seem like I'm turning this tragedy about me.
I think it's a way too that we try to protect them.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's one of those. I kind of got to the point where I would say like, okay, this happened, but not detail.
Right.
Not great detail. But I think early on, it was me trying to protect them, and all of it. All it did was pile up until it exploded. It's going to happen eventually.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's when that's one of the things that leads to the unhealthy coping mechanism. So now, you're having trouble experiencing joy. You're having trouble processing these things that you've seen at work because you're not talking to anybody about it. And that's when alcohol comes in. That's when gambling can come in. Like some people, it's food addiction, sex addiction, drugs. I know people who just they just can't stop buying stuff. They can't stop buying shit. I know the guys that just constantly are buying new guns. And to their defense, they love guns, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But sometimes I wonder, okay, are you filling that void right now?
What's the reason why? That's behind something like that.
So tell me, let's back up and kind of give a little credibility. Tell me a little bit about your career, what you've done, not in a flex type of way, but more just to show hey, people can actually listen and trust what you have to say.
Yeah, I grew up in the department. My dad was an officer, so I remember growing up as a kid, the CJC, running around, go to his office with him. I don't even know why I wasn't in school at the time, but I used to do it all the time. But no, so I came on Metro Nashville Police Department in '99, session 36. And I really only think there's probably about 4 of us left, or 4 of them left. I'm gone now, but I spent most of my career in undercover vice, gangs, CSU, which is street level. And that's kind of what I think too, is I know how I've struggled with things, and most of my career was fun. It's just, those are things build up. But so I had a really good career. I got Investigator of the Year for the department. I think it's in '09. Life-saving award, marriage, all that kind of stuff. And I had a really good career. I ended up retiring as a sergeant. I got promoted about 6 or 7 months before I left. I can't say I really should. It's one of those things that you go from doing what we do to back to patrol. But I ended up retiring. So shortly after I got promoted, with my struggles, with addiction and that sort of thing, I went through a lot. I put my family through a lot. But as far as my career goes, it was awesome. Yeah. We had a blast. I love the people I worked with. When I was in Vice, nobody wanted to take off because it was just fun. We just had a really good time. So, but once I left the department, I didn't know who I was. My entire life has been pushed towards the department, or never sit with your back to the door. And I'm 10, not doing that. But that's just what I had learned. So it was we take, so in that situation, I leave, we take away alcohol. And to your point earlier is I still have all of this stuff that we buried.
Yeah.
What I took away was my way to cope with it. And so, I think the first time around, my thought was if I could just stop drinking, my life would be great. I didn't believe in therapy. I didn't believe in any of that stuff. And then when I took away alcohol, it was, oh, what do I do now?
Well, yeah, that's just treating the symptom. That's not treating the root cause.
Yeah. And so it's you got to get down and dirty, treatment or therapy, trauma, EMDR, trauma therapy and stuff like that. But, I do miss the police department. I don't miss some of this stuff, but I miss, my team and the camaraderie and all of that sort of thing. But it's funny, I was thinking about this the other day, but even when I retired, as much as I wanted to believe that I would be missed, they replaced me immediately.
Yeah.
And so I really have looked back, and we really put our families on the back burner.
Oh, yeah.
and they're the ones who actually does, because ego. I guess we're all ego pretty much with the police work. But I was kind of like, man, it hurt my feelings. It's like, you could replace me that easy, but who can't replace me is my family, who I put second.
Right.
And so since I've retired, I talk to a few guys every once in a while. It is not like it was, and I've kind of, shifted to a place where that's just a job. I tell guys all the time, that's just a job, and what's important to me is in this house, and that's all I care about now. So, but, I don't think a lot of us could get to that place without something happening, some pain. Because, we said earlier, like, if there's no pain, there's no reason to change.
Yeah.
And the severity of that pain, I guess, it really goes to how much you do change. And I was to a point where I almost ended it myself. And like nowadays, when I work with guys who feel that way, it makes me very sad to think, because I remember that feeling of thinking that's the way out. It's a feeling of my kids will be better off without me here. They'll have the money and I'll be gone. They don't have to deal with me. And today, thank God for unanswered prayers, my relationship with them is awesome.
Yeah.
But at that time, that was my thought process, is they'll be better off without me. So, what about you?
Well, I've got 18 years of law enforcement experience, and 10 of it was on the SWAT team. 11 of it was as a dog handler, and some of those years overlapped with each other. So I saw a lot of stressful stuff, a lot of traumatic stuff. At the time, I didn't think that it was having an effect on me, especially in the early years. And when I would come home, sometimes I would tell my wife about some of the things, and sometimes I wouldn't. Some of the things she just knew just because it was on the news. You mentioned something that really struck home with me. It hit hard. We put our families on the back burner. So, the camaraderie, like you're speaking about, like, there are parts of the job that are just phenomenal that I don't think you can find anywhere else, like, other than, the military. Military first responders, like, that camaraderie, I don't think can be replicated, not organically, anywhere else. When I talk to friends from college, or I talk to my wife about her relationships with work and her coworkers and my friends' coworkers, I can tell, like, it's never going to be like what we experience in these jobs, right? Yep. And then you also said everybody's egotistical, right? And that's a tough pill to swallow for some. I think maybe what's more accurate and an easier pill for people to swallow is we're a little bit self-serving, right? So I think anybody that's a first responder is, yes, you're doing it for the right reasons. Like, I think most people will honestly say that when they became a first responder or they went into the military, it was because they wanted to help other people, or they wanted to help their country, help their community.
Totally agree.
Something along those lines. And that's true. I'm not taking away from that. But also, it is self-serving to an extent, because we like how that feels. We like serving. We like helping other people. It makes us feel good. It gives us a purpose. And that's okay. But when you lose it, like you're talking about, if that is a strong part of your identity, that is a tough, like, transition. Like, that can be devastating for some people. That's what leads to suicide for some people, especially if it was before they expected it. If it's because of an injury, health reasons, or termination. But then when they're still working, like, before they leave, you mentioned putting the family on the back burner. I know we all did it. I know I did it. I put my family on the back burner for years because I was trying to put the department first. I was trying to put the mission first. I was trying to put my team first. And yes, some of that was self-serving. Some of that was because I knew that I had a job to do. If I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? Yep. I luckily learned early on, or I had a self-realization moment before, like years ago, like, that I am replaceable. So I won't experience like what you're talking about. Because I already knew, like, I already came to terms with that early on in my career. Like, man, as soon as I leave, it's not going to matter. Like, someone's going to take my spot. Yeah. And I made my peace with that. But recently there was a commander at my agency who passed away, and it was very eye-opening for me, and I'm trying to talk about this topic carefully and tastefully. He was a great man, a good person, man. And he died young. And I'm sure he was just like us. I'm sure he was thinking, well, when I retire, then I'm gonna have all the time in the world with my family. Right now, the job comes first, and he made a lot of sacrifices, just like we all do. And when he passed unexpectedly, I know for me, and I know for a lot of other people that I've talked to on the side, it was just like a very sobering moment.
Yep.
You know, like, holy crap, man. Like, and then when you think about the statistics we've already talked about, where we were going to pass away within 3 to 7 years of retirement.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
It's insanity.
Like that's, so if my whole idea is I'm just going to keep doing this job, I'm going to keep destroying my body, I'm going to destroy my brain, I'm going to keep sacrificing my time with my family, and then when I get to the finish line, that's when I'm going to spend it with my family. Like, that's not a good plan. It's just not a good plan. And it's just tragic, you know? So I'm hoping that more people will start to kind of see it the way that we're seeing it, you know? And I don't know what the solution is. I'm not saying everybody that's a first responder needs to quit, but we need to understand what's going on in our bodies and our brains to help, like, make it so we live longer, you know?
Yeah.
You mentioned the number of traumatic events that people experience, right? So that's a statistic I love to talk about. So when I went to rehab, I was fascinated with the brain aspect of it. Like, I wanted to know what the hell was going on inside my brain. Why was I having flashbacks? Why did certain things like just elevate my heart rate and spark like rage inside of me? You know, I'll give a quick example. My daughter was in the same room I was at our house, and it's an all wood floor, high ceilings. The reason I'm telling you that is so you can kind of picture the acoustics, right? Loud echo. So she's to my right, and she drops her cell phone, and I don't see it, so I'm not expecting it. And that cell phone just belly flops on the ground, makes a huge like popping sound. Now, I didn't think it was a gunshot. Like, at no point did I think, oh, like I'm getting shot at. But what it did do was immediately spiked my heart rate, spiked my breathing, and my body just tensed up, and I filled up with rage.
Yep.
And I screamed at her, you know, like I yelled at her to be more careful. And I just wanted to punch a hole in the wall. Like, I don't know, like I couldn't like get that rage out. And all she did was drop a damn cell phone.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, think about that reaction to what happened. Right. Yeah. But it's just like, I think, like, for me, if some unknown happens, you know, most of what I do is driven by fear, afraid I'm going to lose something, you know, all these things. And that's really hard because, like, when we, you know, we're the helpers.
Yeah.
We do the helping. You don't help us. That's what we do, right? You know, and I think part of it too, like, you know, you go into treatment and these therapists are telling you to do things. And if you really think about it, like, for what we did for a living, we're right every time.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, we tell you what to do, you do it. That's it. So I think one of the biggest things is to squash that and actually be. When I decided and I started asking questions, I decided I wanted help. My life changed immediately.
Oh yeah.
And it changed so fast. I was like, this cannot possibly be real. But you know, it's working for me now, so I'll keep doing it. You know, but it's just, you know, when I left the department, it was really, that's when it really hit me that the people I put first, the department, and I'm not saying I don't talk to the guys, but, you know, I willingly did things that ended up me losing my family. You know, I've been remarried now for quite some time. And what's funny is, and she pointed this out, because she's never known me as an officer, period. But she said this, she said, you know, when you talk about things, you always talk about the same 4 or 5 calls. And then you won't talk about them long, you'll move on. And I didn't even realize I did that.
Yeah.
You know, and there were very traumatic things that we saw and stuff like that. But it's like, you know, I think people on the outside, like her and our spouse, they see it. They see us change. You know, I don't think, and I think we change slowly over time, that we don't necessarily see it ourselves. We don't think it's a problem, or we think we can control it, you know?
Yeah, it's all those, yeah.
Or we think, you know, I'll just, you know, drink this much during the week and never, you know, all that kind of thing. And, you know, none of it ever worked for me. You know, in the end, I ended up always getting drunk.
Yeah.
You know, and I knew what to say to my now ex-wife to be able to do what I wanted to. It did not, I really didn't, I really didn't care because I was going to drink. That was just it, you know? And so, you know, you look at one of the things that I've done, since getting sober and stuff, is I look at the motivation of why I do things. Is it because you just want to be recognized, or is it because you actually care? And that to me is a huge thing. But yeah, just like today working with guys that I worked with is incredible.
Yeah.
To see the transformation that they make in them, to see the changes in the departments as far as taking care of people. It's a very good direction we're going, but you still have those departments who won't help anybody. They just they're like that, suck it up and figure it out. And that's what leads to substance abuse. I think that's what leads to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And again, think about like that guy in the detail who's just pissed. He's probably got PTSD and depression. If we help him, what's going to happen? He's going to treat the public better.
Right. That's the part that people don't. Yeah, people don't often think about that.
Yeah, and it's, but we don't think about it like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard for us to go to another officer, man, whatever, and say, "Hey, man, I'm seeing this pattern in you."
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to do that. And I don't know why, but we just don't.
It's uncomfortable, and a lot of people don't. Most people don't even know how to bring it up because they don't understand what it is to begin with. So how do you bring something up to somebody? You recognize there's an issue, but you don't fully understand the issue. You don't know how to approach it. You don't know what the fix is.
Yeah.
So that makes it difficult. It's easier to just not do it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I mentioned the phone dropping and my heart rate elevated, and that rage building up inside of me, it wasn't until I went to get help. It wasn't until I went to rehab and I learned like what's going on inside the brain that I was able to start to figure out what's happening in those moments. So that cell phone hits the ground. It doesn't trigger that did not trigger a flashback for me at that moment. I didn't think it was gunfire. But what's happened in my brain is I've had basically from the PTSD, I've had damage to the amygdala. So that's the part of the brain that is in charge of like fight or flight. It helps keep you alive, right? It's not the rational part of your brain. It's not the rational thinking. That's the prefrontal cortex. So in moments like that, and it took talking to several therapists for me to like finally piece all this together. Mm-hmm. But now that I understand it, it's empowered me. It feels good to finally know what's going on in those moments. But what happens is my prefrontal cortex is online enough for me to know that is just a cell phone that fell. I am not in any danger. But my amygdala is damaged enough where the fight or flight response is still activated.
Yeah.
So I've got that firing on in the background. So now my body is revving up for a fight that it thinks it's going to have. And the worst part about it is since I'm aware enough to know that I'm not in danger, I feel fucking insane because my body is revving up to fight for its life and there's no fight coming. And I can't, like, if I didn't understand that, I would think I'm insane. That's what leads people to drink, because now I want to punch a hole in the wall and now I feel angry at myself because I just yelled at my daughter and I think there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to talk about that with anybody. I just know right now my body is ready to fucking go at it with something or someone. And I can't bring it down. Now I've learned through grounding techniques how to start to bring that down now that I know, like I can recognize that, but I can't stop that from happening. I can't anticipate everything that's going to happen in my daily life that's going to trigger something like that, But for people who don't understand that or don't know what's going on there, like that's what leads to like further depression, further substance abuse, further suicidal ideations, So learning all that was huge for me.
Yeah, and so here's the question: is like how do guys get help? What's the process? Through the department. What's more important, treatment or your job, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I've spoken several times. There's not a ton of first responders I've got to speak about their story.
Yeah,
I always have. My oldest son actually asked me why I did it, and I said because if I don't, I ruined the pain you had because of what I caused, right? And so there's other families out there that are in the same position I am. But like the question is like, what do we do? You know, how a lot of people are worried about their jobs. I mean, we kind of talked about it earlier. Like my job was gone, but that's okay. I'm better. I'm not worried. The guys now in the department that I no longer talk to, I still talk to my family. I had to get better for me. First of all, I had to get better for me, yes. and then my kids, my wife, and stuff like that. But it's a very scary process to go through when you need help. I had gotten to the point where I didn't know what else to do, and I just said screw it, and I asked for help through the wellness unit, and I got it. But then it was like the ego comes in. It was like I went to treatment, and then I told them how to fix me.
Right.
And it's like if I knew, I wouldn't have to go. Stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I do think it takes a lot. I think we have to normalize it. We have to talk about it. We have to share about it. Because I've never seen like a first responder come into treatment and leave worse. It's always better, and if we can just normalize that, and there's some places that really do a great job of that. Some places don't, but I think it's important to share my story, your story, and all that stuff, because there's a guy out there, I guarantee right now, that who needs treatment, and if sharing about what I went through gets him into treatment, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's put a conviction on me to want to pay it forward. Like you said, what did I go through all that for? I like to think that there's a reason, and if the pain that I put my family through, even if you throw all that to the side, just the time away from them, that me sacrificing every New Year's for a decade, always working, getting called out on Christmas, Thanksgiving, so many things ruined. Like, I don't want that to all be for nothing. I don't want all that to be just because it was a job that I signed up for. I've realized how many people are struggling, and that it feels like this is my mission now. Like, this is what God wants me to do, is to help other people realize what's going on inside them, realize that they might need help, and then getting help before they destroy their lives, destroy their families.
Yeah, I think, to me, it kind of finally came to a point where the only thing that mattered, because I've had, before I went to treatment first time, I had everything. Like, it was, I had the right on paper, picture perfect, right?
Yeah.
And then I went through a divorce, lost everything, literally everything. And so, like, I built back up to, the marriage I have today with my wife. And the only thing that matters to me is her and my boys. The rest is shit. I don't care, And since, getting to that point, our lives are great, I think we do get caught up in, like, I want to save my job or all this kind of, and it's like, once I left the department, they didn't care. For me. Now, I'm not saying it's a horrible department by any means, because they really, have started treating the guys who need
it's just the nature of the beast, like the job.
Yeah.
You know what really put it in perspective for me, and this is not from a traumatic, well, maybe it is sort of, but years ago, there was an officer that died on duty when I was at work, and he was hit by, it was Officer Petrina, and I was working an extra job that day. I didn't know Officer Petrina, but when it went out, I remember it sent chills down my spine, and I had this moment. I was stuck. I couldn't go. Not that it would have mattered, and there was nothing I could have done, but I was stuck, like, on a post. I couldn't leave. I was working an extra job, so I'm sitting there and I'm just listening to the radio, and I just keep, like, pulling up the updates on the computer. I'm trying to, because at first I wasn't sure if he was dead yet, or it's just officer hit. So fast forward several hours, like, I'm still sitting in, like, this shock and disbelief. I can't believe this just happened. Now at this point, I know he's passed away. And I remember hearing the dispatcher having to dispatch more calls. And I pulled up the pending calls for service, and they're like, they were still coming in. Yeah. And I don't know, like, that may sound weird to some people, but to me it was like, holy shit, the world doesn't give a no one cares. Like, this, Yep. The world's going to keep going, and we're still dealing with this, but there's still people having car accidents right now. Robberies are still happening. Murders are still happening. And I don't know, like, it was just a really weird, like, realization. I don't know why I hadn't had it at that point, up to that point yet, but it was like, it doesn't matter if I get killed right now. Like, number one, I am replaceable. And number two, they can't stop. It's just going to keep going.
I thought about this, and it took me years to think about it. When I was listening to Danita speak, and I had to realize at that moment was I had never given any thought to being disabled.
Yeah,
I in my head was I'll get hit going through a door in the head and I won't know it anyways, or I'll make it through fine.
Yeah,
it never crossed my mind that I could be like that's the kind of thing, like, for a normal person that might be like, You didn't think about that? Not one time. Not one time.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, the officer he's referring to, she's paralyzed for life, and it stemmed from a domestic abuse call. Yeah.
Shooting.
She was
She
shot.
got ambushed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I heard her speak, I was like, shit, I've never thought about that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of one of those, because, you look back on things that you've done, situations you've been in, it's like, oh, I don't know if I should have made it through that one, or I got lucky in that one, but.
You mentioned having a moment of attempted suicide earlier. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it was years and years ago. I was at a point where I couldn't get sober, thrown out of my house, all that kind of stuff. But I decided I was done with it. And so I drove to a park, Evan Water Park, and pulled up because I didn't want to do it in the apartment I was in because I didn't want anybody to come, find me.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I went there, and I actually had, because it was that time where it was like, all right, they'll be better off without me. And that's really where that came from. But I went over to the park and I wrote them a note. It was a suicide note. I'm sorry for what I'm doing. I'll love you guys forever. All that kind of stuff, crying, all that shit. So I go out to, there's a park bench, and I was holding my phone, and I was looking at a picture of them. And I put the gun to my head. It was my father's service pistol, actually, and started to pull the trigger, and my son called me. And I tell you, and actually he doesn't even know this, that's the only reason I'm alive today is he called me that time. And it's purely a guy, a guy thing. But it was like I had every intention to do it because I thought that my children would be better off without their father. Who fucks everything up, can't get sober, and all that kind of stuff. Thank God, and that's why now when I hear about people taking their own lives or something like that, it makes me so sad because I remember how it felt.
Yeah.
And
very hopeless.
Yeah. And once that situation literally ended, I dove into a 12-step program and got sober and got better, started doing trauma therapy and all that kind of stuff. But, it's a horrible feeling looking back on it and thinking that was my best thinking on how to get out of this situation.
Yeah.
And that's
the solution.
Almost, I was almost one of those statistics, we talk about. Thank God he called me,
Yeah, that was divine intervention for
Absolutely, for sure. And it's kind of weird. I look back on it, and it's just amazing to me how I kind of got to that place, to where I was going to do what I was going to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's just one of those things, man. I hate to hear it, and I could still feel that feeling of when I thought that was the best. Thank God I didn't, but yeah.
I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they confided in me something very similar. They said that they have found themselves driving to an abandoned area, an abandoned parking lot, and they were thinking about suicide, and they started to do a pros and cons list. And at one point, he's telling me this, and he's opening up to me because he knows, since I've been so open on the internet and everything about my struggles. So, which is great because I want people, if you're not going to go talk to anybody, talk to me.
Yeah, right.
There's at least one person you can talk to. So he's telling me this, and he mentions, well, I must not have been very serious about it because I didn't do it. And I had to stop him. I said, all right, look, buddy, I'm glad you're telling me this, but don't for a second tell yourself that, well, it's not serious because I didn't do it, because man, it's fucking serious.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's very few people who just who will go through it that quickly. Pull over, make a pros and cons list. Yep, it adds up. I need to kill myself, and then do it. It's some people will commit suicide that quickly, but usually there's something else involved. Alcohol, drugs, something else is there's another contributing factor. Very few people rationally come to the decision of suicide within a minute and then do it.
Yeah.
Instead, what ends up happening is it builds over time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I told them. You need to be careful because now you're entertaining it. And I've given the analogy of a snowball before. For me, that's what it felt like. If you think about suicide, those thoughts, at first it's it's just this little ball of snow rolling down the mountain. It's really easy. It's just, a couple inches in diameter. You can stop it. But if you keep entertaining that idea, it builds and builds and builds, gains momentum, grows in size, and eventually you're not going to be able to stop it. So he said it differently. He said, I just wanted to kind of get close to the edge and look at it and think about it. And I said, well, that's the problem right there. Because right now you're stopping a few feet from the edge of that cliff, but next time you pull into that parking lot, you're going to get a few inches closer, and you're going to get to the point where now your toes are touching the edge, and then one day you're just gonna you're gonna fall off that cliff, man. So, yeah, it's one of those things where if you start thinking about it, like I don't like it when people dismiss it, like, well, because there's a little bit of a stigma about that too. It's like, well, why the fuck are you talking about it? If you were serious, you would have done it. Like, man, that's one of the worst things you could say to somebody, especially if they've really thought about suicide before, because that just tells them, like, you know, no one cares, you know. And most people aren't going to get help. Most people aren't going to talk about it. Think about, I can already think, like, just stopping here and thinking about the people in my life that I've known who have committed suicide. Most of them, nobody had any idea.
Yep.
I mean, how many times have you heard that? Like, so-and-so killed themselves. Man,
They're always happy. They're always
no
smiling.
idea. Yes, no fucking idea. So, so if you've ever had those thoughts, or someone's confided in you, like, you need to take that serious, and you need to talk to somebody, because it's not like just telling yourself, well, I must not be serious, or they must not be serious because they're still here. That's not a safe, like, that's not the answer.
Yeah. It's not good rationale.
No. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think we're good, man. Yeah, you know, it's just one of those things, like, you know, I want to, with you, just bring this conversation up.
Yeah.
You know, bring it up. Talk to, you know, families, and ask questions, or call one of us, whatever it is, if you need to talk. That's what I tell people all the time. I don't work for any department, so I'll listen to anything. Yeah. You know, and I'll have guys call me late at night, and I answer the phone because someone did that for me. Yeah. It's all it's about, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I look forward to what we're doing. Got some great guests lined up.
We do, yeah. I'm excited. If you've watched this and anything that we've said resonates with you, feel free. Like, you can reach out to us. You can DM us on Instagram. You can send us a message on YouTube, and we're also going to put links in our description that have resources that you can reach out to as well. So don't feel like you can't reach out to us if there's no one else you know who to, you know, if you don't have anyone else to talk to, we're here.
Yeah, and I would say too, like, if you're listening and you have a great story and you wanna help others, get a hold of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the more we can talk about, the more people we can get this in front of, the more lives that can be saved.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I look forward to our next episode.
That's right.
All right.